will do roll call vote since we have people on Zoom. Karen, John, Kirk,
Here.
Sarah, Ed,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Pat,
Here.
Nancy, here, John.
Just here, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just in time to review the agenda. We'll have public comment. If anybody's here for public comment, we're going to do liaison reports. We're going to officially with this committee launch our website. We'll have a report from our designer LBA about tasks completed, sustainability goals, educational visioning outcomes, which has been quite a process. Their next steps with the OPM with Colliers, we're going to talk about financials. And not going to take a vote on financial, right?
I don't think there's any vote.
Right. And then we're going to approve prior meeting minutes, and then we'll talk about future agenda items. So do we have any public comment? Jackie, do we have any public comment?
No hands on Zoom.
Great. And liaison reports. Anybody have a liaison report? No, John was. Right. No, want to sit over here, Karen?
Karen, seriously, thank you.
Anybody?
Thank you. Joe.
Any liaison reports? I know we're probably going to cover a lot of it during the meeting. Okay, we'll start with the website launch. So Jackie's going to call it up. So our website is killamschool.com. And Tom Milczewski, would you like to?
Sure, and then this is a total team effort, so others can jump in and build off this too. So killamschool.com is officially live as of just a couple of days ago now.
Go koalas.
Go koalas, exactly right. So we can stay here for a little bit just on this site. You'll see the kind of just some of the drone footage of the school kind of through a couple of different shots. And we'll just give like a high level overview of what's on the site, and I'll talk about sort of the process behind us getting to this point too. So you start scrolling down a little bit. I think Jackie's the one driving here. It gives a little bit of context on the project, which is sort of a description that we've used before in some of our other written communications. Scrolling down to the overall project schedule, we think that these are sort of the kind of biggest questions we get a lot of, just like, what is the MSBA? What does it mean for us to be in the process? What's the timeline? And then it starts to go into our teams. You'll see it's broken down by members of the Killam School Building Committee. We're asking hopefully to get all of your pictures on there, make you all famous in town. Continue to scroll down, non-voting members, some of the members of the Educational Visioning Committee, and also then some members, well, obviously our team from LBA and Colliers who already have their pictures up there. A youthful Mike Carroll up there, I like that.
He was 26.
It's
High school graduation?
I guess I'm not the only one. And then you'll see just kind of trying to also keep this part refreshed to project updates. If you some of those are actual links where you'll see that there was a the presentation that LBA and Colliers gave the school committee. You'll see a link up there too. Some of the recent materials from the Killam School Building Committee around sustainability. So you'll see there that's supposed to be keeping the community updated on what's happening. Scrolling down, official docs looks like a small section. If you dive into there, that you can go down. You go pretty deep down the rabbit hole on any of those. Some of those, for example, there's one kind of organizes Google folders that will have the Killam School Building Committee, like meetings, agendas, minutes, things like that. Official docs, so there's some of our official submissions to MSBA. Jackie's opening up a couple so you can kind of get a feel of what's in there. The question we're sort of trying to answer or kind of address with this is people are saying, like, how do I find this document? Or like, is this somewhere out there? And having all that housed in one spot we thought would be helpful to me. Jump in.
So under existing conditions folder, that PDF, which may or may not open at the moment, it's the plans of Killam from 1968. So I know John was asking for it, so people can look at that, and I think they're even downloadable. And if you
68. Stoner. Those weren't okay, fine.
John's face. Go ahead and scroll, Jackie.
So that's just a little blurb on existing conditions, but in each of those, under the important documents, we have a lot of the MSBA documents, the statement of intent and all that kind of stuff
It
there.
was 68.
And if you, Jackie, if you go back, please. Yeah, and go back, right. If you search there, you will search the entire site. So if you want to go search Kirk McCormick, every time he appears on that site, it will load for you. So you can search the site that way.
If you keep scrolling down, some of the most recent videos, I think we're gonna start picking up the pace on just some of the video communications throughout as the project moves forward. One of the ones on there are from the kind of the kickoff community meeting. You can watch that video there. Keep scrolling down. As of now, we only have one FAQ, but I'm gonna continue to add to that as the project moves forward. Also, a little box there to opt into code red to be able to get up, kind of the text communications throughout as the project moves forward. And then last but not least, on this part of the page, you can also submit questions, concerns, comments, feedback. We actually already had some people submit some communication this way too. Just another way for them to communicate. And also then the last thing I'd like to share just on this too is top right, you see calendar. I found that to be really helpful. We had a lot of people ask like what's happening with like meetings coming up and things like that. You'll see that goes to the next one right on here, March 18th, site and traffic listening session. It has the title of what's happening, also then has sort of a little, the site and also a description of what's happening. You can see it's populated, kind of over the next couple of months. So you see the March event, a bunch in April, things like that.
In the calendar too, you can sign up to receive any updates to the calendar. So people can get that message sent to them on that. And at the very bottom of the page is a link to the Facebook page. So I think we're pathetically only at like 40 likes or something.
I was the first one.
It was the second, I was the third. But if we can get people to go to that site and just keep liking it to get.
Do you want to quickly click that, Jackie, so people can see what that? And if you scroll down, you see Lindsay also. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. That's one of the videos we put up today.
Lindsay is very good
fine.
with social media too. So you'll see Lindsay
Great.
trying to
Oh, that
recruit
was
people for the
great.
traffic.
What were you directing traffic there?
I'm trying to
In the
advertise
morning?
our traffic pattern, so people wanna come give input on it. Here's a
Uh-huh.
live look in the morning.
Awesome.
About the Beyonce.
Yeah, and it was like
Yeah.
13 minutes.
And,
I love that. Anyone who's like worked on the site before, I talk about how we arrived to the site, things that anyone want to talk more about like what's on the site, content, anything?
yeah, I'd like to request that Reading Lake be listed as a non-voting member on the committee. If there's some reason why we can't be there. And I don't think we were, I didn't.
No, I saw
see it.
that. You're right. You should be.
And I would list Molly Pike as the member if you need a name, or if you want to just keep it as a department.
Great.
Thank you.
Good feedback.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any like updates to it or suggestions, just shout out.
Yeah, I was just looking for it. We got a letter in February of 22, which was like, congratulations, you're welcome to the program. Like, that's not up there.
So if you go to, Jackie, if you go down to
We can add that.
documents, we may have missed one. There's
Project Journey.
official docs. Yep, official docs. And those are in addition to MSBA docs. It's about the invitation in to the program.
I think that was the.
Yeah.
I'm pleased.
Right, so that's the invitation into the program. There's another one about the feasibility study. There's another one from our delegates asking the MSBA to just saying, yes, we approve this.
This must have already taken a lot of time. Somebody,
We're gonna
Really?
get there. Oh, yeah.
it's amazing.
And there's also the GNAP report in there, that kind of was the work done before this whole thing, and the statement of intent is in there also. But if anybody notices any documents that are missing, please just let us know. We'll put them on.
Also, if anyone has any just feedback as you look through it, people missing, docs missing, or also if you think there's other things that we could be putting on here to engage with a different constituency in the community, please let us know. Like I think Lindsay was sharing some of those small little video clips, even the quick one, may be a way to engage with a stakeholder group we're not connecting with. So if you have ideas or feedback, share that with us. So just to give a little background and context on how we got here too, I think we were, the website's been discussed for a little while, I think amongst the team. I think we're kind of spinning our wheels a little bit on it for a while. And then obviously I think we're thrilled with sort of where we are now. I think that as we look through some of the other sites, I think this one can sort of compete with some of the other sites we've seen for some of the projects at this early stage. A couple of just like huge thank yous to first, like I think Carla has invested a ton of time into this as sort of being a visionary for what the site should include and what it could look like and things like that. I really appreciate all of your time on that. We had parent volunteer, Chris Haley, who's obviously a parent at Coolidge and at Birch too, who has a background in, web design, coding, I'm guessing, computer science, type work, who did a lot of this work on the back end for us. And we sat down, the executive assistant in our office, Olivia Lejeune, and Jane, and a couple others. Katie, yeah, sat down he put hours and days into help us kind of getting all the back end set, but then also coaching up our teams. So now this is hosted by, on the school side, and that we can sort of keep it up to speed with, with Jane and the team on the town side. So we think that because of his work and collaboration, we have it all sort of set, and now we sort of think internally we can keep it up and running.
Yeah.
And I know that was no sort of light lift.
Was that his drone footage too?
That was his drone footage too, yeah.
Can tell.
Yes.
Just that drone picture on the site at the beginning took 3 hours to do.
It's very valuable though. I mean, that people remember that. That's a
The
good thing.
website's also optimized for mobile devices because we anticipate that most people will interact with this site on their phone. So they'll be going to it, they'll be linking to it. So it does work well on your phone. Please check it out that way as well.
If you, it actually is really nice on your phone, and the site is one page, so you just scroll down and you can click into different areas. So it looks really nice to the phone as well.
The last point I'll add is the price tag kind of made, I think me and a little others just like, little hesitant when we were looking at website price tag and this to be done for, I think it was $200 for the year, and then Chris volunteering his time. I think is huge for the project too. So thank you for the volunteerism, and thank you for also for any feedback, let us know, but it's a quick overview of where we are.
Yeah, and staff will be able to maintain it. I think that's key. Lindsay's been sending us little videos. I know Carla and Karen and Tom are also going to be doing some project videos that'll be short to help folks that want to engage with it in short segments. And so that information will be going up soon. And I really appreciate the way that the site, the architecture has been done so that it's easy for people to find what they're looking for, even if they don't quite know what they're looking for. I just want to play around and find information. So it makes sense. And it's about a $30,000 to $40,000 savings, I think. Now we were looking at those numbers. So, and it keeps the control in-house, and we kind of like that. So.
PBC did a condition assessment. I don't know whether that's from there, is it? Brief condition assessment that we did at the school.
No, if you can point me.
I can get you,
Yeah,
I can
that'd
get you
be great.
everything the PVC did.
That would be
I'll
great.
rummage through
Yeah.
everything we have and see if there's anything that would be relevant.
Awesome.
If your SOI went in, it might be that, like the submission to the MSBA.
Okay.
And Karen, I do remember a letter from.
I already
about
found February it. I can't
2020.
find it again. I'm not a big fan of Outlook, but it's
Oh,
in there.
yeah, no, I remember what
Sorry.
you're talking about, because it's ringing a bell. It was, yeah, so.
It's
we'll
right
pick it
before
up.
the orientation letter. It was the congratulations, you're in letter.
Well, could we sent out a press release.
Oh, yeah.
No, it
That
was
would be
a
nice
year
too, I
before
suppose.
that.
Oh, it was before.
It was a year before that, there was another one.
February 22.
Yeah,
You found it? Someone has it?
well, I'll find it.
You'll find it. All right.
I'll find it.
Anything you guys have,
And then,
that's as far as my brain could go.
No, it's a lot.
Tom, either Tom or Carla too, like, we're pointing folks to, like, either on the town side or on the school side, or this, like, there's links on other sites to get us there too. So I think that's, like, again, it's trying to direct as many people, however they engage with the town, whether from the school side, from the town side, there'll be links there to be able to get to the site as well, so.
I think the established Twitter accounts and things like that will be able to kind of point you this way as well, right? So you
Yeah.
already have
And I think,
established followings on those accounts.
and then, you know, everyone else that does any kind of outreach to the community, you know, we'll just have to, you know, it'd be great to liaison with them when we get to a milestone, have it mentioned from the police, you know, like whoever has, you know, kind of community engagement, whether it's from RPD or somewhere else, you know, constant, you know, kind of pushing towards this, and that's gonna help just reach people that may not seek it out.
Right, the DPW, we talked about that, the DPW.
DPW too, yep.
Right, and the, can't think of the one at the senior center. I'm going blank on their, newsletter as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
The pleasantries.
Pleasantries.
Yep, we got that out.
Yeah,
My last plug is if anyone knows anyone in the community is really good with social media too, our office is always open to partnering with people who have like a background or expertise or a passion for any sort of social media platforms. So if anyone knows anyone in the community in that area, please let us know.
and is the, building committee interested in having their photos taken? If I can get somebody here so we can put up pictures.
I can just send you one. Well, yeah, you could do that too if you already have like a favorite, so not risk it being horrible.
And I think it's already established they can be high school.
We have a precedent.
Yeah, that'll make sure we get traffic off. That's baby pictures.
Is that good?
Yeah.
You can say like baby pictures.
If you're good to put a face on.
Yeah.
On the-
Carla,
Okay.
is RCTV, the cable TV involved in this, and is that a possible option as another outlet?
Yep.
'Cause
We can,
I know that at Reading Light, we've been doing a lot of work with the Wilmington cable station, and like they talked us into doing a twice a month interview with the general manager, and it's been surprisingly effective that people watch these things, so that's another good source.
Great idea.
yeah, we can do that.
Do you want me on that? Or do you want to?
I'm happy to broach it with Phil.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
And that's part of our, communications committee
Yeah.
meeting.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't replace this, but it's
Great
another pointing point from here to
Absolutely.
the actual video.
RCTV,
We have talked about
Commercials too.
they don't produce anything, in other words, they're just the conduit. You have to do the work, you have to produce it. If you want a program, you have to produce the program.
Right.
They just provide the cameras and the studio space, they don't actually produce anything.
But
You're good with the microphone.
if you can find a way to get that done, it can
Well,
be
you
another.
just go to Bill and say, Bill, we want a time slot.
Yeah,
It's really hard to know what exactly they're broadcasting when you like cut the cord, because we were talking about community ads. So I don't even know if they run anymore. There's no way to find out. So you have to go, who has cable in here? Can we come to your house?
Okay, so I will let you know about pictures if I can get a photographer. I'll let everybody know.
Thank you.
And maybe before the next meeting.
Makeup artist too.
We'll have haircuts a few days before.
Yeah, there you go.
Great.
We can
Thank
Photoshop it up. The princess can do that. We
was gonna say, we can do a weird hand too.
Great. Okay, well, moving right along. Designer reports.
Okay, so overview of what we have tasks we've completed since our last meeting. We've completed the educational visioning, which we have Mike Perolo, our educational planner here tonight. And after I finish talking, Mike's gonna give a presentation about the whole process and the findings. The space program, I did this last week when I was like, we're gonna be done with the space program. The space program is at 90%. We have a couple of dangling modifiers that we need to pick up, but it's in great shape. Leah and I spent all week last week, like 3 full days. I think we talked to every single staff member at Public School. It was great.
I think that that's something for everybody to know is we come back here, but there's an awful lot that has to be done. And we found that meeting with every single teacher and staff person, including the maintenance and the food staff, all of those people, is really important, not just to check what educational leaders tell us or what we assume, but also to create buy-in. Because when we meet with a faculty member, say a first grade teacher who hasn't been at educational visioning, they don't know about these kinds of spaces and why we're doing them. The great thing is when we meet with somebody like all the different grade teachers, and then we, through that process, we create consensus because we ask them the same question and they kind of come back and say, this person said this. By the end of what we did with this programming, we really know that everybody wants the same thing. And it's tied right into what Mike was working with you guys on. So I feel like it's part of the whole buy-in process. That's why it's important.
Thank you, Lee. The site survey has also been completed, which puts us in a great position now to kind of, we're now at the point, I know it seems like we've been working for a long time, but we've been collecting information. We're now at the point where we're ready to start like putting some lines down on paper and start designing. So we needed the site survey completed before we could really start. So that is great. The traffic study, the traffic analysis has been completed and we're going to report back to the SBC on that on the 25th at our next meeting. The existing conditions assessment has been completed. We'll report back same at our next meeting, and the sustainability goals have been completed and reviewed with this group and with the community.
The sustainability goals have a couple of dangling modifiers as well. Although I do want to, here's what I wanted to say to anyone in the room who wants to hear it. We actually got different changes from different people. And I'm going to give you an example. Some people said, please call this an electric building. It's going to be an electric building. A couple other people said, I would not want you to make the assumption and call this an electric building. So we had to find a way to say, it could be an electric building, and that's all I'm going to say. I hope everyone understands our position. It can't be a priority unless everybody really, so you should all just talk to yourselves. Beyond that, I wanted to say that I think you'll all be really surprised by the traffic study. People we have who do it because we got a kind of a peek at what they do. They take videos, they count cars, they're on an inclement day, they're out here over and over and over. And you're going to see these, they know how many cars are coming at certain times, and they'll be able to do models to say how to overcome some of these challenges and have options. We are going to meet with the neighbors and just show them the analysis, but not give them any solutions, and then have them write things and like say, hey, when I drive down here, there's a fence in the way and all this kind of stuff. Then we're going to come to you with both the analysis and preliminary ideas for how to solve problems, especially queuing and all of that. I've always been amazed by the level of work that they do, and it's very broad. So I just want you to know that.
So that's going to happen at the community meeting. The site survey and the traffic will happen at the community meeting.
The first community meetings, just showing what they observed and then letting them respond to the observations and kind of add to the observations. There's a principal who lives across the street worrying, right? And he knows stuff too. And then we come back to you with that information plus some ideas. Should be good.
Just checking in on, thanks Lee, just checking in on where we are in our schedule. We're in second week of March, I believe. It's always shocking when I look at the calendar and realize where we are. So we've completed the traffic analysis. We've completed the existing conditions studies, and we're ready to start with program and criteria. I think we've pretty much wrapped that up as well. So we're really ready actually to start with this developing alternatives.
Geotechnical, is that ongoing?
That's ongoing. I included the sustainability goals revised based on the feedback we got from the committee and from the community. But I don't think we necessarily need to go through them again. We did that last time we met, but I wanted to include them in the packet for your review.
If there's any items that anyone sees and they don't agree with, that's what we should talk about.
True.
And again, there's this weird consensus thing where you don't know if somebody else said actually the opposite, and we don't always know what to do. We're just empty vessels. But anyway, be happy to talk about anything. It's very important to us.
If I can just,
Yes.
one of the things to consider with that is some of these sustainability goals could also potentially, the price might be part of the discussion there. So all electric versus not all electric, we're gonna review both options. And then the pricing and the goals of the community, everything are all gonna tie together. And that's ultimately gonna allow us to understand if it's all electric, does that mean it's air source heat pumps? Does that mean we're considering ground source heat pumps? It's all those things. So just be a little patient as far as that goes, is that we're not saying it's gonna be one or the other. We're saying we're gonna review the options and we're gonna see where the pricing is and see where the cost benefit analysis, that's not just construction cost, that's operational cost, that's replacement in 25 years or 40 years, depending on the systems, it's all that stuff. And so we're gonna keep working through that for you.
Does that also like look towards MSBA's, like if there's additional
Reimbursements. So that'll definitely be part of the calculation. And then below the line, so that will be above the line calculations. Below the line calculation, we're gonna have discussions about incentives. Because the MSBA reimbursement will lower the town's share. It might not lower the overall project share, but it might lower the town share. But incentives after the fact are something that you still have to pay the money out. You have to prove that your building actually met the requirements, and then you can get the incentives back. Oftentimes, it's not a check coming back to you. It's a rebate on your electric bill, or it's a tax rebate, things like that. So we're not gonna exclude those, but we're gonna carry those below the line, because it's not like if we have $1 million incentives and we have a $100 million project, it doesn't mean we now have a $9 million project. It means you have $100 million. And at some point way down the line, in probably a year after it's open, you might get that $1 million back.
And so this whole this process is gonna be a series of trade-offs, right? And so in what way are the various options gonna be presented to us so that we can look and say, all right, here's the price you pay for this, here's the price that you might save by doing this, here's the benefit of this, here's the extra cost. Like, how do you envision like presenting those options to us?
So I think initially, Lee and Jenny are gonna come up with a minimum of 3 options, which is the MSBA. And the 3 options that we're talking about is a renovation only, which I don't think is going to work, but we have to do that anyway. A renovation addition option and a new option. Now, when I say a new option, I envision we might have a new option that's 1 story and a new option that's 2 stories and a new option that's 3 stories. There's different new options, a new option with the pre-K, a new option without a pre-K. Like, there's gonna be a lot of options.
Right.
And we're gonna do some very high level order of magnitude pricing on those. But for example, if we're talking ground source heat pumps versus air source heat pumps, you could have those both on all of those options. So it starts to really become, almost infinite options. So we've got to start narrowing it down a little bit at a time. And we might narrow down from renovation addition versus new first. And that choice of air source versus ground source might linger for quite a while.
Well, that's what I was getting at. There are gonna be a lot of different decisions to be made.
Yeah, so we're gonna start
now.
narrowing down the bigger items, like the actual building itself first. And then as we start to narrow down from there, then we can do those.
All part, and it really is all part of the process. Especially what you were talking about with mechanical and those kinds of things. We have a lot of very smart people who are gonna help us decide. When it all comes together, and it will, I think you'll be happy.
Lee, I notice you have an item in water conservation, water. What's the purpose of that? I mean, we don't live in Arizona, we're in Massachusetts, and it rains, comes down buckets times. Do we really have a water crisis here that we have to spend money conserving water? I mean,
No, but in the LEAD program, and no matter where you are, and I agree with you that that in certain places in the country, certain of these things matter more than in other places. It's good to conserve water anyway, clean potable water. A lot of it has to do with, and it's almost ubiquitous now to have low flow toilets and things like that, that are just more efficient.
Yes.
So I think here we talk about more efficiency, but the other thing that's really important is site water and drainage, collection and drainage. It's just such a huge thing. I was at that very meeting where the person who lives next door to the school said, I'm getting flooded out all the time. I live in a pit. What are you going to do with the water? And that has a lot to do with what are we going to do with the water? And that is conservation, but it's also where you put it, how you control it. Do you do it naturally on the surface or do you do it underground? I believe that's also part
In
of
other
it.
words, we have too much water, is what you were saying.
Well, you will,
Which is my point.
yes, but also we want to feed the aquifer. And not just take, and all that. So,
Also,
good practice, but not something we want to throw a lot of money at.
No, but I mean, using plants that require less water doesn't really seem to be something.
Using what?
Plants that require less water.
I'll tell you where that comes into play, if I may. Indigenous plants or native plantings typically are part of the environment and live better in this environment. If we use those plants, they probably require less maintenance or less water. The maintenance people are not going to put in a sprinkler system for all the plants, or if you go down and buy rose bushes, they're all going to die. So what happens is if we don't want to have an irrigation system, we want to have plantings that are easily maintained and will live. That's what that means.
Okay.
It's like silly stuff like that. But we just do it anyway. It's not going to cost more money.
It's not the cost of the water to maintain it, it's the cost of the people out there to maintain it, with the water.
That's right. Water's easy. Oh, by the way, and I know this is a public meeting, but water is important because the people who live in the building right now can't drink the water. Did you know that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
Well, I mean, so I mean, that's pretty.
Why is that? I didn't hear that.
Lead. So you need a new system, you need new water, and that is really, let's solve that problem first.
great questions and discussion. Thank you. I think we're ready to move on to the educational visioning, so I'll turn it
Sure.
over to Mike
Thank you.
to share about our process.
Before Mike speaks, I want to say something nice about you. Okay, because
Take
most of you,
Take the floor, Lee.
You only have an hour. You only have an hour.
Hey, it's not gonna take a minute.
I like to transition. Many of you haven't met Mike. For an MSBA and a school project like this, especially an elementary school, someone like Mike is paramount to its success. We've had other educational program planners. I like you because you were a teacher,
Thank
because you really understand it. It's really, really important that we get this right. This is a school, and every school that we do is different. And Mike has helped these groups of people and the teachers and all of the educational people kind of understand through workshops and other process, understand what is really important to them. And it helps us once this all comes out the other side, we really do know how to use it. And I just want you to know that this is like the essence of why we're here. The other things are all important, but you're the most important.
Well, I mean, that's what I like.
Now you're up.
to tell me, so thank you.
I'll add to that, and for the designer selection panel, Mike was listed at 2 of the teams, and you were a driving factor for me.
I appreciate that, thank you. This is a public meeting, right? Everybody heard that. Thank you. Oh my God, now I feel like pressure to.
The bar's set high.
The bar, I like
is
to
set
keep
high,
the
Mike.
bar low, okay? So thank you, I appreciate the kind words. So I haven't really met majority of you, so I'll just do a quick introduction. So I'm Mike Perillo, MLP Integrated Design is my company. I'm an educational planner who works with design teams like this on building projects, but also I'm just an educational consultant to do professional development, on academic and social emotional practices, because I was a teacher for 20 years. So a lot of this work that we did with the community and teachers and staff, and some of the folks at this table, was really centered on education, but also education and design. So this just gives you an overview of the process we went through. So we really started with front-loading experiences for stakeholders so that they could even have the capacity to envision what's possible, given that the environment they're working in is not exactly what it should be. It's hard sometimes for people to see beyond those constraints. So we started by going on school tours. We went and saw that picture right there is the
Rise.
Smith Elementary School in Danvers.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, yeah.
Which everybody liked a lot.
This is almost my bedtime, so my recall is not as strong right now. Thank you, yes. So that's the Danvers School. We also went to Ashland and Tewksbury as well and saw new elementary schools there. We also did a shadow day where Lee, Jenny, and I walked the Killam building and sat in classes, talked to teachers, and really saw things in action. From there, then we started the visioning workshops, which were large-scale workshops with like 30 to 40 stakeholders. We even had a student involved, which was awesome, sitting next to the principal, sitting next to the fire chief, police, and all those things. We even had the therapy dog from the fire or police department, which was awesome.
Rusty, right?
Oh, I didn't know his name. Thank you, Rusty. So we had 3 visioning sessions, and then we ended with a programming workshop where we went really from a 50,000-foot level to much more granular and talked really about programmatic needs and the day-to-day experience of teachers.
I'm always surprised at how knowledgeable we have a kindergarten teacher. The way she speaks about education, I would think she have a PhD in education. I mean, she's incredible. And these are your teachers. You have some amazing people.
Yeah, Katie is pretty incredible. All the people that we worked with is pretty
Yes,
incredible.
that's a good
I
point.
keep saying, come work with me someday. Sorry, but not for like 20 years.
Tom's not here.
What's up, Mike?
See, I told you, set the bar low. I'm sorry. Me in my mouth. Okay. So in terms of visioning sessions that we ran, this image kind of really speaks to the process that I follow, being an educator, knowing that we have to start with child development. So we started talking about the developmental traits of kids. We had people document and look at research-based information and then start to say, how does that impact space and teaching and learning? Then we looked at specifically teaching and learning, and then we brought all of those 3 pieces together and then started saying, how does it shape the learning environment? So that's where those different visioning sessions came from. We started with an initial listening session where we identified overarching goals and priorities. This kind of built off of the project charter that Jenny and Lee did also with the Killam staff and community members. And so these were some of the outcomes. They did a post-it note activity and then combined the post-it notes into like ideas and created overarching priorities based on that. So there was a lot of interest in having outdoor opportunities for school and community use. Space to support professional development because that's a growing piece in schools, really honoring student work and encouraging innovation. So not just, a typical bulletin board where you're putting up a finished piece of work, but really creating opportunities and spaces and experiences where kids are inspired, like they feel when they go to museums or when they see their work in progress portrayed everywhere and they really feel like, wow, I'm something. Supporting inclusion and social emotional wellness, creating a sustainable and thoughtful building economically. And then these 3 bullets at the bottom were really, I would say, the crux that kept coming up again and again and again. Having this strong connection and community use, having this strong belonging and collaboration and interdisciplinary connection, and then having flexibility. One of the interesting things about the building is even though the existing building has a lot of challenges, it has a lot of pros in that the building is kind of organized in neighborhoods and you have this central square of a library that people have to constantly flow through. And so they kept talking about, we see each other all the time and we want that connectivity and that community to go into this new building as well. So you'll see a lot of that. So when we had the teaching and learning workshop, these are some of the developmental considerations. in terms of teaching, learning, and space that came up. A focus on academics and social emotional learning, providing a lot of wide ranges of comfort needs and levels. So a building that isn't one size fits all, but really is unique to each developmental need. Embedding opportunities for imaginative play and choice, doing lots of hands-on project-based activities. Multisensory teaching, ideas that, you know, when kids go to museums and other places where they can manipulate things on walls and take opportunities to take a breath throughout the day. How do we incorporate things like that educationally? You see, again, connections between outside and inside, sensory spaces and features for de-escalation, collaboration, imagination, exploration. We talked about, you know, what is the experience of a child before they even enter the building? And what is that experience throughout the day? How can they kind of find opportunities to choose their own adventure and find ways that fits them developmentally and socially, emotionally?
One of the things that I always got out of this, and teachers confirmed it, was education used to be everybody gets the same thing. And everybody sits in a room, you all get the same information in the same way and all of that. Not just special education, but differentiated teaching and all of 21st century learning is about being able to differentiate and create alternatives for teaching. We all learn differently and they recognize that. And when they talk about in the architecture, different kinds of spaces, if they say de-escalation, it's because some kids, it's too much and they act out and you put them over here and all of a sudden they're a genius, you know what I mean? And we're all different that way. And it is hard, challenging for a teacher, but if they have those spaces and they can kind of manipulate it right there, then they can respond to the needs of the different kids, even with people pushing in, pulling out and helping them in other ways. So the architecture really can support through flexibility in different kinds of spaces, people. And that's one of the themes that I hear. And they were saying it in different ways over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to try to do that.
And you'll see a lot of this almost sounds repetitive, but I think it's purposefully done that way. So at the very end of our teaching and learning educational visioning, which was a whole day workshop, each group created a poster on what is the future Killam Elementary School. And then together we came and sat in a circle and identified where are the commonalities that each group talked about. And so this is just an abbreviated list of them, but some of these I've already talked about and Lee just mentioned. Again, this inclusivity, this flexibility, this sense of community, showcasing student work, learning being much more self-directed, embedding curiosity and purposeful play, having community areas, so creating grade level pods, but also opportunities for the whole school to meet, opportunities for the community to come in and use the space as well as a community resource, and then varied sensory and calming opportunities throughout. One of the things that we looked at, which is really a passion of mine, is not just looking at academic space, but looking at the kids' experiences throughout the day. Like what happens when we go to the cafeteria? Not everybody can handle eating in this large cafeteria that's loud. What happens when we go to gym? Are there different opportunities for quieter versions of those things? So again, kids can find their level of stimulation throughout the day.
You know, on Thursday, after we met for our faculty, I went I got some food from Michelle, who's the food service person. It's awesome. But then I heard music and I heard music. So I went into the cafeteria and the kids had already eaten. And all these kids, I think it was on their own, were sitting on the steps of the stage and they were all singing. And a couple of girls with microphones were singing like out loud and they were all singing these songs. I'd never seen like that, something, they were like, it was like a professional, like, and I was just watching it, just eating, going, oh my goodness, these are, and they're so like.
It's how we waste some time before recess. I'm sure it's not pandemonium.
But they're so.
Was it just the kids or was the
Yeah.
teacher?
No, the kids were just doing it and the little girl was like singing and I just was like so taken by it. They're so happy and they're so involved in their own place. It was amazing.
Did you join in?
I can't. I started dancing.
Okay.
I'm much more, I'm more of a dancer.
Sway back and forth.
Are you
kind of
gonna
vibes.
demonstrate? Is that-
Right here.
Bring some funk music.
Okay, I just wanted to say that because it's a special place. really is.
The last visioning session we had culminated in two things. One, we asked people to do some drawing of a building. But we also asked folks to think about, we brought back all of the outcomes from other conversations and sessions, and we said, what are the guiding design considerations that really will shape and inform the building and the program? And so these are in order of ranking how people voted, each group voted. You can see, again, some of the same things have come up. So building that supports belonging, variety of flexible adjacent spaces, not just having classrooms, but having small group rooms nearby, having breakout space nearby, collaboration, inclusion, space to support whole group and community use, professional collaboration space, and then opportunities to experience nature. And then professional development space toward the bottom, but all of these obviously moving forward as important considerations.
I want to say something about, I can't read it too well. The very first one, which was on the top of almost everybody's list when they moved the cards around.
So it says building that supports belonging, all students and families feel welcome and see themselves.
The family thing, I want to say something, because a lot of the inclusion or the belonging thing at an elementary school, especially Killam, has to do with the families. And the families don't just include families like, hi, I'm visiting today. It includes the multi-language learners who all go to, many of them who go to that, and their parents who, some of them can't speak English, and the kids from the Boston residents who come in every day and don't have a home. Like, all that to support these people, those families, means that's what an elementary school, especially a neighborhood elementary school. And it's very much, that's the kind of community building it is. I'm always reminded, see, I hope we listen, but that's the kind that I'm here.
I would agree. Also, to culminate that last activity, you can see Katie, there's that kindergarten teacher right here. Everybody was asked to take a few photos of precedent examples that define their vision of what the future building would be, and then assign words and phrases to it. So when you take all the words and phrases that people identified and put it in a word cloud, you can see the spaces are in pretty much alignment of the other visioning sessions. Flexibility, nature, space, choice, collaboration, sensory opportunities, being interactive. One other activity that the group was involved in is we showed them examples of precedent spaces from all over the world, not just the United States. And these are design patterns and features that are being put in a lot of contemporary elementary schools. And so we asked people to give thumbs up or hearts or thumbs down to all of these different spaces as we took them through them. And you can see in ranking order the features that were most important. Again, there's that community piece, sense of belonging, areas of respite throughout. So those are some of those sensory calming spaces. And then STEAM and STEM at the top. And then lastly, I included this slide because this is really the next step, and that's why it says draft so far. So what happens is in this process, all of these outcomes from visioning start to help shape and inform what the building program is going to be. So that's why Lee and Jenny just are wrapping up the space summary template. We actually met about that with teachers this morning. So that way, all of the things that come out of visioning and the space template and the educational program document that the district is going to write, all of those things are in alignment. So teaching and learning in space are really in alignment. And so the reason it says draft so far is because now over the next month, essentially, the district and I will work together to create this educational program document, and we'll make sure that that matches the space summary.
That's a written document that goes to the MSBA to explain your programs such that they match with your spaces so that they will fund it and understand that you have the right staff and schedule. They're very, very involved in understanding if this building is appropriate. I also want to say from this is, at this point, and Jenny and Scott in our office have already been looking at this, we have a really good sense without an actual floor plan of the organizational diagram of the building. What wants to be in clusters, what connects to what, where do you see first? What is the, the way everything connects as a diagram, and we'll be doing one of those diagrams, but we have a really good sense of it. We did some diagramming in one of our meetings, but it just tells us where to put the rooms. And now we have to solve it for your site, which is a difficult site because it's so small and tall or whatever. It's easy to do a diagram, but then if you have to take that diagram and make it work vertically, you have to think differently. And, but I think people have really told us what they want.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
Absolutely.
that?
Mhm.
You had a little bit to do with this. Anyway,
So if I can't just piggybacking on what you said, we had a meeting on the space summary this morning. So we were just talking a little bit earlier about how are we gonna come up with all these options? Well, that space summary is a big part of it. It's an Excel file, basically, but it outlines what you're gonna have for spaces in your building. So any options we have, whether they're 1 story or 3 stories or whatever, they're gonna all have all these same parts and pieces, right? So they're gonna be equal from that perspective that, you know, they have the same amount of classrooms for first grade or for kindergarten or pre-K might be a little different, right? We might have pre-K options, but it's gonna have the same kind of cafeteria spaces, gymnasium spaces and things like that we can evaluate. And that's part of the process here. That's part of getting the MSBA on board. They want to look at that, and that's where the reimbursement comes in. So we actually had a little conversation, Tom and I, just after the call today, and we're going to follow back with you guys just to kind of double check things to make sure that we're hitting all the right points and that we're not overbuilding it, if you will. That, you know, if we have a space for special ed here and we have a space for special ed, do we need both of those? Do they need to get a little bigger, or can we combine them and make it one small, one space? So we're going to continue to review that and refine that. So it's great that we have the starting point, and now we can work on really, finishing it off.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
My mic.
I have a little question.
yeah,
I know,
any
I know what
questions?
STEM is, but I don't know what STEAM is.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Sorry, I should have clarified that. So STEAM is essentially the next iteration educationally, and it stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Okay, I don't know, sorry.
But I think the boundary of STEAM, and this is part of our conversation, also starting to embed media and literacy and other forms of art. Some districts even call it stream. So we had conversations about,
Growing.
right, yeah. So we had conversations about, what is library, what is art, where is STEAM, how do those things intersect one another?
There comes a time when it goes full circle and you ask yourself, which I bet you would, when does it just become project-based learning everywhere? So that's not like you go to a room and do that. And that's the kind of questions we have, is like, how much can you do in a classroom and make and change and design and change and all of that? When does STEM become STEAM, become stream, become streaming or something? And when does that just become the curriculum and how we teach?
There used to be LGBTQ, now there's a plus, and there's another one that keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, and I will also say that a lot of people talk about educational fads. I actually don't, since the open classroom and all of that, and PIT, you guys have PIT, we won't have a PIT. It's not really accessible. That's why we won't have a PIT. But what I would say is that the fads it's not really that they're fads, it's just their new names a lot and how people kind of view them. But in Massachusetts, the MSBA has helped to support educational planning to such an extent that their schools are educationally relevant more than most states that I've been to. And they support it just like they support sustainability and energy. They really do. They support real education, and they're pushing it forward. So I'm happy to be working for them, even though they're very rigorous.
I take it you're not a fan of the new way of teaching in England. Have you heard about the new way of teaching?
Where? In England?
In England, yes.
What's
Certain
that?
schools, kids don't speak, it's totally quiet, absolutely silent.
Why is
Kids are not
that?
allowed to speak. They say it improves education. There's no play, it sounds like the school I went to, but.
Yeah.
That's the way I am, right?
Are there sticks involved?
Well, I think so, yes. No, there's a new wave of education in England. We're digressing.
Yeah,
Where
no, definitely different than what we
Kids-
talked about.
kids are not allowed to speak in school. They're not even allowed to speak during lunch break. And
Maybe it's mindfulness.
yeah, it's being adopted, and they say that they improve the grade average like 1.5 years. in the school. And it's for poor people who need discipline. You're not a fan of it, obviously.
No, I'll stay away.
One thing I wanted to mention about this work too is that we really tried to think not just for the next 5, 10 years, but like what are the careers and the readiness going to look like 20 to 50 years from now? So some of the programming, we were like, well, we don't exactly have that, but are we gonna have that in 5 years? Probably. Are we going to have more, careers in STEM? Absolutely. We know that's where it's going. So that was the conversation we were trying to push teachers and all of our groups to kind of think about, which some of the spaces I think came out crafted well because of those conversations.
Any questions? I mean, come on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is academic spilling?
Right, so instead of the old fashioned, hallway where you have classrooms on one side and classrooms on the other, and everybody is in these individual siloed spaces. Academic spilling means opportunities to allow for teachers in 2 different classes. Yeah, so that's a perfect example. Thank you. Smart. So you see how in this hallway that's really connecting different classes, that kids aren't just working in a classroom, but they're also working just outside the classroom. And that you have kind of those peekaboo windows you can see into the classroom. So there's a visual connection for supervision. So academic spilling is this idea of the classroom sometimes just isn't enough or the appropriate space. That if you're doing a humanities lesson, like I was an English teacher, I often would work with a social studies teacher. If we were doing something humanities based, we'd open up a wall that connected 2 rooms and we'd spill into each other's room. Kids would collaborate and do interdisciplinary work. Oftentimes, kids are spilling out into hallways because they need more breakout space. It's something that's been happening for decades. Teachers have kids working on the floor in the hallway, but now it's intentionally designed so that way you can have these breakout spaces and spill out into some type of common area that's shared within a grade level pod.
And it creates neighborhoods. It really makes you feel like, hey, this is my 4 classrooms of my grade, and we're together and we create our own place, and we're the koalas, we're the sea monkeys, sea monkeys like that. And I also want to say that I hate corridors. And because basically the old way was a whole bunch of classrooms in a hallway. And not only is that kind of institutional and doesn't feel good and you don't know where you are and all that kind of stuff, but also it's just not how we learn. Like the classroom is important, but why not take the hallway where everybody's going to spill out and get on top of each other anyway, and make it wider and use every inch of the building. So it's running everywhere. It's easier to do in middle schools and places like that where kids are a little older. So here we have to be very intentional about having in places where that teacher can see them, supervise or you have tons of special education teachers and paras who come in and out and inclusion, and we need to support them in these areas. So they're not off in one part of the building anymore. They're integrated in the teaching areas. Just want to tell you these basic things because that's what education needs to be now. And that's where your building is often insufficient because it didn't exist. And now, you have an OT, a physical therapy teacher in the hallway with some kids. They don't have a room because they didn't have a room. Now they will. That's all,
Great question. I'm glad you asked that.
It is. Sounds a little messy.
Any other questions?
One of the things we will probably do sometime is show some design pattern pictures so that you're going to visit a couple of schools. And I know that the pre-tech is for sustainability, but luckily you're also going to elementary schools and they're pretty new. And while we'll talk about energy, you get to see what these things are like holistically. And I'm excited for you to do that.
Awesome. So next steps, as I mentioned, we're kind of entering the first design phase, and we're just this week having a little charrette in our office with Scott, the project designer, and Lee and myself, and we're like digging into it and gonna put together some initial options. We're gonna be sharing those initial options with this group on April 8th. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. The next SBC meeting is March 25th, which is traffic, site analysis and existing conditions. At that meeting, we'll look at like some site planning options. And then on April 8th, we'll look at like some building options. The next community meetings are March 18th. That's the site and traffic listening session. So we're just soliciting feedback. And then on April 1st, we'll be showing them some options, which we will already have shown to you on the 25th. And then our first round of cost estimating is rapidly approaching, April 15th to May 3rd. So that's going to be very high level, basically just on a square foot basis, estimating those first, minimum of 3, but it's probably going to be more like 6 or 8 options.
Probably.
And then the PDP submittal to the MSBA will be May 20th. So those are the things we're looking ahead to. And that's my last slide. Any questions?
Does anybody have any concerns or anything about what's going on, or like, is this gonna happen or not? Just curious.
So just date wise, those are all consistent with what you've mapped out. We're not
Yeah.
behind, or we're right on.
Right on target.
Right on target.
There's no, yeah, you're right where you're supposed to be. We have you right where we want you. But, yeah, I think we're following the process. We're doing it pretty, like we're in there, we don't skimp. Hopefully you're getting your money's worth, and you're right where you're supposed to be.
So really, we're working towards the PDP submission.
Yeah, I mean,
Collective work to get
Yeah.
that submission for MSBA.
Deadline, and then after the PDP, it'll be a PSR.
After the PDP, it'll be what?
PSR, the preferred schematic report is next milestone submittal.
Keeping narrowing down, it's getting down.
We should add some questions on the, frequently asked questions about those.
Okay, so I'll turn it back to Carla. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move on to Colliers.
I'm gonna share my screen here, if that's okay. I should, my screen, I'll come back to that one in a minute. It's not.
What's Greg doing out in the ocean?
that water is not moving. I think it's AI.
We're just
That's
taking
me.
advantage of the because.
So we did provide a draft of the MSBA submission with your package. I was actually gonna just focus more on the financial part, because I think we mentioned at the last meeting, our MSBA packages are actually just going in. We're gonna finalize it tomorrow morning and send it. So I think what you had was a draft. If there's questions, I can certainly answer them. But we're still in the process of getting invoices over to the district. We haven't got them over to you yet. So this is gonna reflect what we've done since the last time, but you're not gonna see an LBA invoice on there or a Colliers, because we haven't sent them to you yet. So it's in process. But in general, I think the last time I shared this screen, this is the overall project budget. I think we had a few more columns shown there, or a few more rows shown. And I think based off the discussions we had internally, looking at this, we said if we can kind of narrow it down to really the items that we're using right now, it might make it a little bit cleaner for people. So that's what we've done here. So you've got your architect feasibility line here, and then we have a subtotal. It's a subtotal because that does expand so that we can have the architect's DD phase, CD phase, all the different phases in there. Similarly with admin, we have the OPM feasibility study, we have environmental and site and other project costs. Those are really the 4 categories: the A&E feasibility, the OPM feasibility, environmental and site, and other. Those are the 4 categories that tie out to the ProPay system, which is the MSBA reimbursements. And then we have the contingencies down here that we're showing, and we're showing some of the dollars spent to date so far. Jumping into the next level of detail on that. This is kind of what we had shown you last time. What we had said is, as we go forward, we're going to gray out what we talked about previously, and we're only gonna really focus in on the things that we haven't done since that. So as we've worked with the district in your ProPay submissions, we got the first submission, we realized there was one invoice, and it was actually for an advertisement in the newspaper when we were doing our designer services that we didn't have a copy of. So we had to put that into our budget. So that's why you can see it's a $269. So maybe we'd have a small vote here, I guess, to approve that. But that was something that had to be done during the design phase. It's already been paid. But it is something that we would recommend that it is a project cost and it should be assumed by the project. So what we've suggested here is to move $269 from contingency to the other project cost line item so that we can cover that. And you'll see that same thing again when we go into our commitments. We've now made that as a commitment here. Again, that's the only one that isn't grayed out. And then when we go into the invoices, we're actually showing that in the invoices here. And that was actually part of ProPay submission number 1. So you can see that was here. You can see some of the last 2 Colliers invoices, the latest ones weren't in ProPay submission number 1. Those will go into the next month's ProPay submission because those were in process as we were finalizing that ProPay number 1. So not a lot of new information here. It's really just that Daily Times Chronicle this month. But next month, depending on we have a second meeting in March. We're not going to be doing a financial update on that, but on the following one, we'll be doing an update. Other than that, we do have our cash flow shown there with our actuals versus our anticipated, and you can see that we're trending just slightly under the projections. And from there, we do have a schedule. I think
So
this.
what I'm
oh,
hearing you
sure.
say, I'm sorry to interrupt, is that we are on time and under budget.
Correct.
Okay, just for the project update, sorry, thank you.
I like that.
Soundbite. Don't try.
We did provide a schedule in your package, which is this, the exact same information. I'm gonna flip over. Is a little easier to read on this version, if you will, and we're happy to send that off to everybody to share that.
Right. We should put that on the website too.
Yes. So we're working through that right now. We're right here in the section here. We're doing our meetings and we're doing our preparation heading towards that PDP package. Again, happy to, I can zoom in here and we can talk details, but really I think Jenny hit a lot of the key milestones that we're working towards right now. This is just a different version of that same information. Any questions?
We're gonna need to make a motion for that $269. Okay, so I'll just need some specifics. What do you need in there?
So let me flip back to that. So I would say it's a motion to approve the commitment, $269.67 to the Daily Times Chronicle for advertisement for the designer selection.
So moved.
Take a vote. Oh, did you second it?
I second it.
Seconded by Ed. Karen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Nancy. Yes. Carla, yes, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more motion, Karen? For approval, approval of the prior meeting that's on 2/12.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Carla, can you repeat what the motion is? I'm sorry.
To approve the 2/12 meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Karen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Carla, yes. The motion passes.
We noticed that back.
It's a tip off.
Also, the sun isn't setting.
I know, it's making me go fishing.
That's early morning sun, not late afternoon or evening sun.
There you go.
The waves don't move at all. It's unchanged.
Guys are so easy. Okay, so for future agenda items, our next meeting is March 25th. And then April 8th for our building committee meeting. Community meetings, March 18th and April 1st. Nobody even, we did have the sustainability committee meeting on February 28th. Anybody have any suggestions for future agenda items? No? Okay. I'll, before we leave, the school tours. Do you want to talk about that quickly?
Yeah, let me share my screen again.
Everybody was sent an email on, from Jack about, school tours, 2 in Watertown and 1 was in Acton. I believe. And we're trying to just narrow down days or times of day during the day that people may be available.
Jackie, I sent mine just about an hour before the meeting.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm in compliance, even though no.
If anybody
doesn't
wants
appear
to
that way.
just jump on Mike's computer before you leave, so you don't even have to worry about doing it later. We can just quickly fill those in and then if
Are these
people can make it,
Specific dates or just like general?
So I think the idea here, we went back and forth a little bit. Do I contact the towns first?
Yeah.
And find out when they're available and then find out nobody can attend?
Yeah.
Or do we find specific dates? So what we're trying to do is just in general, what dates work best for everybody? And then we're gonna try and narrow that down to 2 or 3 times a day or 2 or 3 times in a week. And then reach out to Watertown and see how that will work. So I think these meetings are trying to focus on you folks to try and make sure we're working with your schedule as much as possible. But if we have educators that want to go, if we have other people that want to go, we're absolutely willing to have whoever wants to go, but we want to try and focus. So right now, for example, it looks like we have, a 7 and a 6 here, and then another 6 here and a 6 here. So those might be the 4 times that we focus in on. But once we get everybody else's times, then obviously that will change. So it may not be the perfect time for everybody, but we're trying to get it to be the best time for as many people as possible, basically. So once we can get that filled in, then we'll be reaching out to the 2 towns. So there's 2 schools in Watertown that we're gonna try to look at both of them probably in the same day. And then the 3rd school might be a different day or.
I talked to them last week. I have a couple contacts from already.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Are they all elementary schools?
So the 2 in one, yeah, I think all 3 schools are elementary schools. The 2 in Watertown are both recently constructed projects. They're both net zero buildings, not net zero ready, actually net zero. One is a smaller school, which I think is more in line with the enrollment that we're looking at. The second one is a larger school, but it has the pre-K element in it. So it has kind of some of the options that you want to look at. So I think they'll be good from a sustainability point and from that perspective, but I think they'll also be good just to give you another perspective on how somebody else is teaching nowadays. And actually, I think it's the Hosmer and the Cunniff School. One of the neat things, I was sitting at home one morning on a Saturday morning, and this old house came on, and they actually features the Cunniff School because they were doing a little recycling composting setup outside the school. So I thought that was pretty neat. So.
Would these 3 schools be on 3 different days or all on one day?
I think the 2 Watertown at least would try and do it one day. Depending on how everything works out, if we can get all 3 in a day, but it also kind of depends on people's schedule. I think the 2 Watertown are across town from each other, so even though they're within one town, it can still take a little bit of time to get from one to the other. And again, depending on, are we doing it, mornings or afternoons or like right now, Monday midday and Monday evening kind of are 2 of the options. So maybe it's a little easier to do 2 schools, and kind of like one in the midday and then one a little bit later or something like that. The other thing we want to be cognizant of is, especially for the facilities teams at these schools, they're probably not there at 7 o'clock at night. They're going to be there a little bit earlier. So that's why if you look, the options that we did, morning, midday, evening. But I think I'm going to try and suggest, at least from the facility side, if that's what we're looking at, we might want to stay more towards the first 2 of those options. But again, we'll see where everybody falls.
Great. So if anybody wants to jump on Mike's computer to update your availability. or just send it.
This is for us and who else? Like educators too, like how many people, I mean,
The focus is this group. The focus is to let this group go and see some sustainability schools, but to also see the classrooms, right? And then if other people want to join in, educators want to join, they're welcome to. But the
I'll be
focus-
there, we'll be there because I want to see them, but also I'm excited to see what your reactions are, to see more of like what you like. I was like that. We'll be there.
Joe.
Did you folks do any of these three?
Nope.
And then we
Which
might,
is good too.
we might invite.
Like that, yeah.
yes, perfect.
It's really like mind blowing going to one, it sounds ridiculous, but when you go into one of these schools, and you're paying attention, it just kind of blows your mind. So. That's my.
Would we make our own way there, or can we get a school bus, or what? What's the logistics?
You're on your
Come with
own.
me if you want, I'll
Okay.
drive.
I'll make my
I'll carpool.
It's not, that's not sustainable. That's
Car-
not-
car-
it has-
We'll take the e-car.
It has to be an electric school bus.
Okay, electric school bus, that's all we need.
Yes, we do, definitely.
Recreation. Yeah, we can definitely.
My sister.
Anybody have a motion for me?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay. Karen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Carla, yes. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Me too. I'm gonna go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Tom, we'll see you around. Yes.
We are.
Project will be going on for a while.